Good, please, I'll call our meeting to order. This is the June meeting of the Wilson County Board of Zoning Appeals. Appreciate everybody being here. Just a reminder, if you would please, if you have a phone with you, the post office signature, please turn the volume down, bring it down at this point, so it doesn't disturb our proceedings as we move through our agenda. Do we have anybody here this morning who has a case on the agenda that would like to withdraw or have your case moved to another meeting later on in the year? And if there are none, then our agenda will remain as published. We have a court reporter here this morning who's taking a record of our proceedings. The court reporter is provided as a service from Wilson County government. If you would like a transcript of a particular case, that would be available to you at your expense. And if you would please see the court reporter at the conclusion of the meeting today. When the case is called, whoever is representing that particular case, if you would please come to the podium, state your name and address for the record, and we'll hear from the applicant. And then after the applicant's had the opportunity to address the board, we'll give anyone else who wishes to speak the opportunity, whether they're speaking in favor of the case or in opposition. I need to state for the record that the staff has made recommendations to the board in regarding each case, and the board will rely on those recommendations as part of the testimony as we render our decision. Reminder to everyone, the meeting this morning is being taped for later telecast, and it is available on YouTube, Wilson County TV, WCTV, and other platforms if you have any interest in reviewing the meeting later. At this time, if you do plan to make a statement in front of the board, you'll need to take oath to be sworn in. So if you would please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to give in front of this board is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? I do. Thank you. Okay, moving into our agenda. You do not need to approve the minutes, though. To the members of the board, you were sent the minutes from our May meeting earlier in the month. You've had a chance to review those. Are there any corrections we need to make to our minutes from the month of May? If not, do I hear a motion that we approve May's minutes?
So moved.
Have a motion, have a second? I'll second. Have a motion, second. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor, vote aye.
Aye.
All opposed, vote no. And the ayes have it. Okay, Mr. Dow is not with us this morning, so we promise that you take his seat, please.
Absolutely.
And Mr. Manning, I have a conflict on that in the agenda, and I'll ask you to sit in and leave during that hearing. All right. First case on the agenda is case 3995. This was referred from our meeting of April of 2022. Mary Wyman requesting to use the property as short-term rental. The property is located at 259 McQuarrie Road, Lot 1. Dean Wyman's property is parcel 95 on Wilson County Tax Map 116. The property consists of 4.32 acres and is zoned A1 agricultural. We get staff recommendations on 3995.
Mr. Chairman, you may recall that this was before the board back in early 22 and 2022, and at the time there was a double-wide manufactured home being installed or constructed on the property that they had not completed construction, and there was quite a bit of question from the county commissioner and others about whether or not it was appropriate to go on and issue or grant a VRBO permit at that time. You all chose to defer it until such time as, I suppose, the construction was complete. As I understand it, it is now complete, and so I will proceed with my comments.
Okay.
The applicant is requesting to use the property as a short-term rental. Staff has received a business plan stating how the applicant considers using the property. If the use is granted, staff recommends that the business plan be made a part of the approval and put the applicant on notice that if they're to add any sort of structure or expansion to the use of the property, they'll have to come back before the board for a plot plan submittal and revised business plan approval. The business plan states the desired number of guests allowed per stay is 7. The number of bedrooms in the home is not stated. If granted, the board typically approves 2 tenants per bedroom to make sure that the septic system on the property can serve the intended use, meaning this home would need 4 bedrooms. The business plan states the caretakers are located within 5 minutes and 15 minutes of the short-term rental. Airbnb short-term rentals are a use permissible on appeal in the A1 zone district. Given the language in the zoning ordinance, staff can recommend approval. If the board approves the request, the applicant will need to make their contact information available to WEMA, the building inspector, and the county sheriff's office. The applicant will also need to prove that they or the caretaker live within 10 miles of the property before the house can function as a short-term rental.
Okay, who's here to represent 3995 Wyman? Yes, ma'am. You just stay right there, you don't have to come. Could you state your name and address to the board?
Mary Wineland, and I live at 45 Macquarie Road, Lakeville, which is right down the street from the trailer.
And is there anything you'd like to tell the board about this application?
Well, what's important to me, I've owned that land for a long time, never made a dime on it. I grew up in Gladeville, graduated Mount Juliet in 1958, left, came back about 4 years ago, have been sick ever since, and I'm just trying to make an income. I think it's going to be an asset to the community. There's 3 rentals right there on either side of me already by local people. And it looks real nice. I don't see any reason why we couldn't have an Airbnb. I think it would be an asset to the glade.
Do you know how many bedrooms?
Yes,
the
there's
lot-
3.
Now, how many bedrooms the lot is approved for the septic?
3.
3 bedrooms.
It's not a double wide, it's a single wide that's 16 feet wide.
My apologies.
Yeah.
I misspoke.
But you can tell us without hesitation that the septic system is a 3-bedroom per.
Yes, I just had that done last year.
Does the board have any questions for the applicant?
I got just probably a statement to affirm what was said, you're allowed 2 guests per bedroom. And you've got 7, so you can have 6.
6, right. I think I put that, I don't know why I did that, but you're right, 6.
Well, what some people put down because they might have a couch or whatever, it's 2 per bedroom period.
Right, okay. But it's 3 full bedrooms, 2 baths.
Any other questions from the board?
I like this.
Yes, ma'am.
Who is, Ms. Wyland, who is going to be wound up taking care of this? Who's
My
going to
son-
oversee?
My son lives with me, he's right here, and my daughter is on 231, so they will be caretakers.
Tom, just as a reminder, we normally approve these for a year initially, correct?
Yes, sir. The letter of the regulation states that they are to be approved for a finite period of time. You, in the precedent that you set, you've initially approved each of the short-term rentals that you approved for a period of 1 year, after which, when they come back, depending upon testimony and everything, you may choose to grant them a more extended period of time.
Okay. If the board doesn't have any more questions for the applicant, is there anyone else here who wishes to address 3995 Wyman? Yes, sir, come forward to the podium, please. Name and address, please.
Liam Cook, 905 Tunnel Road, Mount Juliet.
Yes, sir.
My concern is, and it may not be before this board, is changing the zoning. Do y'all approve the license and permits, or is that another board that does that?
First of all, we're not changing any zoning
Okay,
at all.
it's not for
It's a
rezoning.
permit for a B&B.
It's a listed use permissible on appeal, meaning that it's a use that's available to be asked for if you come to this board within that zone
What
district.
license were you referring to?
My license and permits for Airbnb or whatever you have to have for short-term rental. You have to have permits and licenses.
As far as I know, the only permit from the ordinance would be the special use permit for the use. That's the only thing we're considering here this morning. Is there anything else required?
I will say it would be exceptionally preferable if every one of them went and got a business license and paid their business tax to the county for the business use as a short-term rental.
But that's not anything we're
That's
considering.
not anything we're considering.
That's for the clerk.
And they're also required to pay state sales tax, which typically VRBO or Airbnb, because of the way the state approved short-term rentals at the state level, at state law, they have to pay their sales tax to the state. And VRBO and some of the larger corporate short-term rentals that most people have rolled through include that and get those payments to the state.
The only thing they're asking us for, the only thing we would consider this morning is a special use for this particular item.
I guess my position for it is what something like that brings to the life of a small community. You know, Airbnb, short-term, whatever you want to call it. What it brings with it, you know, to a small community, close-knit community. I've seen what they do and problems that come with them, parties and stuff, and I have problems down there already. I have 2 of the rental properties that are adjacent to this, but they're long-term rental properties, they're not short-term. And Ms. Robinson asked a question I wanted to ask, who's going to manage it if Ms. Wyman's not able to, and her son, that's fine, but she has a property, or either her grandson has a property between the 2 of my properties, and for years I've had nothing but problems, and
Is it his property?
it's one, no, it's another property.
Right.
And I just want to stop the problems that it would bring to the community, having a short-term rental or Airbnb.
There are specific things we can consider, specific things we cannot consider. This is an allowable use in this district on appeal, in other words. And the way these appeals work is if we deny this, we have to have a reason that we can consider. And so far, I haven't heard anything that is, and there's legitimate concerns, don't get me wrong, but I haven't heard anything that we could consider.
Okay.
I will say that one reason is staff stated we approve these for 1 year at a time,
Okay.
so that for whatever reason, a year from now, they have to come back and reapply. So if there's a lot of complaints or a lot of issues,
Okay.
that would be a valid concern.
We don't have those issues as evidence now, but
Right.
we could in a year.
Okay.
And hopefully,
Hopefully they're
Well,
not.
say-
Right, they're allowed to
Right.
give years to
Right.
run it.
Okay.
But when they come back, we still don't turn them loose indefinitely. Most of these things are a year initially, and then 2 or 3 years after that, and then maybe 5 is the longest we've ever gone.
Okay.
So we, try to keep things, we don't normally do that with use on the field type variances. Normally they run with the land, they run forever.
Mhm.
But on these B&Bs, we're allowed to establish a period of time that has an end date.
Okay. All right. So thank you for hearing me answer my question.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Cook, you were also, let me address this, you were also told, I understand that that is zoned R1, which is residential. It's not, it's
That's what I thought.
agriculture, so it doesn't have to be rezoned, it is for use for that.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
What's our normal position on this phone?
We had normally said 10 to 6, I think, is the, maybe on quiet hours, but we let them sort of set their own. And if they're within that reason, we've done okay with it. Anyone else wish to address 3995?
one other concern that I've heard, at least offline, I cannot recall if it came up officially at the last meeting, was the fact that it was a manufactured home. And I'd like to speak to that for a minute. We really cannot treat it any differently than any other residence, whether it's for purposes of getting a building permit or whether it's for purposes of considering this use. So, just wanted to point that out, and unless Mike tells me otherwise.
Okay. If no one else wishes to address 3995, I'll close the public hearing. Turn it to the board. Do I have discussion or a motion?
I'll make the motion to approve for 1 year.
Okay, have a motion to approve the application for 1 year. To have a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Let me offer an amendment that the number of guests be limited to 6. The business plan will become part of the record. Your motion was for a year, and the quiet time has been established in the business plan, so we don't need that. So the amendment is to limit the number of guests to 6 and place the business plan in the record. Do you accept the amendment? Does our second accept the amendment?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any discussion on the motion? There's no discussion. All in favor vote aye.
Aye.
Opposition vote no. And the ayes have it. Thank y'all very much. Our next case is 4098. Dale Porter is requesting a variance of 10 feet from the west side yard setback requirement of 15 feet. The variance will allow the attached garage to be 5 feet from the west side property line. The property is located at 810 Lovers Lane, Lot 9, Boyd Bradley property, parcel 41, Wilson County Tax Map 59. Property consists of 5.5 acres, zone R1 residential. Get staff recommendations now on 4098.
Mr. Chairman, the applicant is requesting a variance of 10 feet from the west side yard setback requirement of 15 feet, leaving 5 feet to the property line. This is an old tract of record. It became a record on May 12, 1969 from our research. Therefore, staff can recommend approval as it predates the zoning ordinance by some 5 years.
Okay, who is here to represent 4098 Porter? Yes, sir. Anything like to tell the board?
Morning, Dale Porter. I'm a 27-year-old retired Army veteran, and moved here about 5 years ago. We originally built the house with the original builder, and I think the distance, and I may be wrong, I'm always wrong before, but it used to be 10 feet from the property line. I think it increased to 15. After further review, I could actually set up at 5 feet if the board so deems it 10 feet is too much. The main reasons why I've got it where it's at, the original builder had the garage in the place where it's at, is because the other side is the septic tank and the drain field. And then the back has a shelter and structure there behind the house. So that was the only place really feasible to place it. And then the distance around the vehicles and the recreational vehicle that's going to be along the long side of it is really more or less about 5 to 8 more years. I should be wheelchair bound according to my doctors, my knees and my back. It would be nice to be able to get around with a wheelchair, some of these vehicles. But that's my only comments.
It's your variance. The staff's recommended approval. You want 5 foot or 10?
I would like 10 feet if you're
We'll see
willing
how
to.
that goes.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I will point out in the pictures, you'll notice that there is construction on the property. That construction at present is compliant with the zoning ordinance. It's 15 feet from what we can tell to the property line. He's asking for the additional 10 feet of width, should he want to build onto that.
Gotcha. Okay. Does the board have any questions for the applicant? If not, does anyone else here wish to address 4098 Porter? If not, we'll close the public hearing in regard to 4098. Now turning to the board, do I hear a motion, or is there further discussion we need to have?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Have a motion to approve 4098. Is there a second? Mr. Crockett, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Neal. Any discussion? Not, all in favor vote aye. Opposition vote no. The ayes have it. Thank you, sir.
And that was for the 10-foot request.
It was.
God bless you.
Our next case is case 4099. Brendan Bowles is requesting the use of the property for a truck terminal. Applicant is also requesting to waive the sewer requirements. Property is located at 1327, 1363, and 1401 West Division Street, parcel 6, 6.02 and 6.03 on Wilson County Tax Map 77. The property consists of a total of 10.95 acres, zone I-1 light industrial. With staff recommendations now on 4099.
Mr. Chairman, from my perspective, this is probably the most interesting case we have on the agenda today because it's dealing with alternative energy provision. And I think it's something we may see more of going forward, or similar cases to it. The applicant is requesting to use the property for a truck terminal, and it should say truck terminal and compressed gas filling facility, if you will. The applicant is also requesting to waive the sewer requirements. Truck terminals are a use on appeal in an industrial zone district, or in this industrial zone district, which I believe it's I-1. The industrial property is in a primarily residential area. Otherwise, other than the zoning that these three tracts have, the facility will not initially be open to the public, as we understand it. With the following consideration, staff can recommend approval. The three parcels under consideration, as you can see, it consists of three parcels that have, at least a couple of which have residences on them. My understanding is those may be removed as they come in with a site plan for the development of this property. The three parcels under consideration must be combined into one with the granted variances for all three of them remaining in place. Secondly, the development must go through the full site plan review process before any construction begins on the property. Staff can also recommend approval of waiving the sewer requirement on the property so long as there are no personnel or members of the public remaining on the property for any extended period of time beyond either filling up their compressed natural gas vehicles or picking up the compressed natural gas vehicle that has been parked in the terminal on the property and has been filling up on what we understand is a slow release gas connection overnight, or for any other use that's not an extended period of time. So I'm assuming they've got to bring compressed natural gas tanks in, or compressed natural gas into the property to fill up their larger tanks at one point or another. But we're amenable to granting the variance on the sewer requirement so long as they don't have bathrooms on the property and nobody's staying there for 10, 15 minutes. I have, because it's a new, at least for me, a new technology, I have kind of interrogated the applicant a little bit on safety features associated with it. I don't know that that's something that you guys necessarily have a lot of oversight over, other than trying to make sure it fits into the character of the area. I think that most of the safety features would be the responsibility of the planning commission and the fire marshal, the fire inspector to oversee as they reach development stage.
Okay. Who's here to represent 4099? Yes, sir. State your name for the record, please.
Raul Anderson, 4343 Von Carmen, Newport Beach, California. And I've also got Colton Doris here with Kimley Horn. The applicant was Brendan Bowles, but he's on summer vacation this week, so Colton is with his firm here. So
You would please make whatever statement you'd like in front of the board.
well, first of all, Chairman Thompson and members of the commission, thanks for hearing us here this morning. Tom, appreciate your presentation and your work along the way here. As Tom said, this is a new concept, right? New to becoming mainstream. Compressed natural gas fueling's been around over 25 years. Essentially, we don't have tanks on site other than for compressing. So we utilize, that's why site selection has been so difficult for us. We've been trying to get into the market here for over 2.5 years, but finding a site that has zoning and the gas capacity is always challenging as we've done this across the country. Little background, CT Realty, we've been in business since 1994. We're a developer across the country, mostly of industrial real estate, but we've now undertaken this initiative for clean energy fuels across the country. There's 28 of these currently, I believe, under construction. I've handled most of the Midwest projects. We've completed 4. We've got another 4 under construction, and in the Midwest, another 4, trying to get entitlements as we're here doing today. With regard to some of the safety issues, whether it is or is not the concern of this board, because Tom brought it up, I'll just quickly touch on it. This is all electronically monitored. It's been in use for over 20 years. Clean Energy is the largest provider of renewable or of compressed natural gas fueling in the country. Their customers are usually fleet customers, where the fleet will fuel overnight, just as we're proposing here, through what we call a time fill. Think of it as similar to plugging in an electric car. The compressed natural gas and the time fill will dispense into the vehicle overnight. We've also got a second component of the project, which is what we call fast fill, which think of that more as similar to filling up your car, right? It takes 10 minutes or so and then you go on. But with regard to safety, as I said, we've done this across the country. The fire marshals, other building departments, whatever the authority is, they're comfortable, they get comfortable, all the safety parameters are in place.
So these things fill overnight. What happens if they start to leak in the middle of the night?
They're all computer monitored. We've got a 24-hour nerve center. The computer shuts off the flow immediately. Also, Clean Energy, they are, like I said, the largest provider of compressed natural gas fuel in the country. So they've got service folks in every major MSA. So generally within 30 to 45 minutes of each of our facilities, they've got staff who then, in your example, once the leak is triggered and the nerve center, it's 24/7 and it's manned, they'll immediately stop the flow, and then a tech will just come out and repair it, similar to any other leak if it were a leak at a gasoline station.
And how many trucks would be in this facility, on any given night?
I'd have to go back and look specifically to this facility, but
Did you run on 40?
yeah, it's
a lot.
but that's a combination of time fill, which is time fill slots will be what we call cabs or tractors, right? And then the other component is box trucks. So between the two, there are over 200.
Sir, I understand Clean Energy is the company that's going to establish this, but you're contracting in this particular instance with Amazon? Is that-
Clean Energy has a customer in tow, and I can't speak to that because it's not my customer. We're just developing these sites, but this is for a user, yes.
Yeah, who the user is not really.
It is for a user, but I think one thing that's important to note is we've been told this will be a net zero initiative, meaning every single clean energy compressed natural gas truck will take a diesel burning truck off of that company's fleet or out of that fleet.
So these folks, these trucks, where will they park their personal vehicles?
That we have personal vehicle parking on site, you know, with,
So 200 to 250 potential drivers
correct.
visiting, dropping off the vehicle and picking up the vehicle. Nobody has to go to the bathroom.
So, you know, we do have some amenities that are on site. Sometimes it's a small portable office. Sometimes it's a, you know, there's some parking for trucks that have broken down in amenity area for those to get towed out or get light maintenance done on them. And, you know, so to say there's no restrooms, I think is a distinction from a sewer connection. Our business plan is to have, in some of these areas where we don't have water and sewer close, we have portable facilities on a regular, you know, with a holding tank for waste and for fresh water to service the facility. So the intent is not to have no ability for anyone to use the restroom. Do you want to speak a little bit more to the correspondence you got, Colton, on the sewer?
Yeah, so I've been in communication with John Smith at Wastewater Authority, and the closest step system to this site is 3.5 miles away, straight line distance. He said here in his email yesterday that the subject site is not reasonably accessible to any of the water authority, sewer developments, or force mains.
There's no septic on the property.
There is existing septic on several lots within the property, so part of us waiving this sewer requirement for commercial use would be flexibility to at some point use septic, possibly tie into the existing septic on the property just to the west of this property as well.
How far are you from City of Mount Juliet, so?
I don't have that data.
Does the board have any questions for that? And this is already zoned I-1, correct? Tom?
Yes, sir.
So this could be a diesel truck terminal if they wanted to.
Yes. I think it's got to come to the use on appeal list as the listed use of rental vehicle for a truck stop.
Again, does the board have any questions on that?
Just out of curiosity, it says it's, truck hub is not open to the public access, it's restricted to vehicles, I guess, certain. So how do you, is it gated? How do people get in and out, I guess, and how do you keep the public out?
Yeah, gated with either a card reader or a code.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you were talking, 10 people, temporary facilities might be in order for 5, 6, 7, 10 max, maybe 200, 250 folks coming back and forth. Temporary facilities seem to be quite a stretch for that type of use.
Yeah, I think generally where these trucks go from here, they have facilities and lounges and facilities pre-planned for these drivers.
Just be practical, people have to go back. And I know people that drive trucks, and they're
Sure.
going to go back.
Sure. Well, I think, if you've ever been to a concert or a venue, right, they have temp facilities there that take thousands of people in one night. And, this is like this other places we have on a 3 times a week, fill up the water and pump out. But this is truly, there's no convenience store, there's no place to go in and hang out. So this is really, drivers come, they park their personal vehicle, get in either their tractor, their box truck and go. But your point is well taken, I understand.
You said there are existing or multiple existing septic systems on site. And it is, help me, Tom, you can deal with it more than I do. There are options of going to the Water and Wastewater Authority and developing a standalone
That's correct.
sewer condition that meets the municipal requirement.
There is.
Does the board have any other questions for that?
One thing.
Yes, sir.
On the restroom, should it be in the plan or part of this, what they're gonna do, how many portal has a
plan. Yeah, one question I would have about that, most of the, even the descriptions or the examples you've given are temporary in nature. The longest standing legal Porta-John application I can think of locally would have been at Target, Target retail stores in our communities during COVID for whatever reason. I don't know exactly what, health standard or whatever, but they had kind of a luxury Porta-John out front of Target throughout the height of COVID, rather than having their interior bathrooms open. But I say all that saying that this is not really your jurisdiction, it's the state's, the State Farm Environment Conservation. It's my perception, typically approves Porta-Johns for temporary events or for some temporary period of time, such as on a construction site. I'm not familiar with them typically allowing them on an extended basis.
We have allowed in small instances where you only had a few people, we have waived the municipal sewer requirement in lieu of a septic system.
To allow them to use.
To allow them to use a septic system.
Yes.
I don't know that we've ever waived the sewer requirement, knowing they don't plan to put in anything and have a temporary.
Well, you have had some mini storage facilities that you granted variances from, and their stated intent was not to have that. But that would be the only thing I can think of.
But again, that's extremely limited volume. I mean, you have people coming a few at a time.
Yes.
All right. If the board doesn't have any other questions for the applicant, let me ask you, is there anyone else here who wishes to speak to 4099 Brendan Bowles? Yes, ma'am. Yeah. Why don't y'all have a seat, let me just lay them up. If you would please, ma'am, come to the podium and give me your name and address.
Yes, my name is Gail McClain, and I live at 1485 East Division Street, Mount Juliet. When you read the paper, did you say West or East Division? Because my paper says East Division. I want to make sure I'm right.
It's East Division.
It is East Division?
Did I say west? Well, if I said west, it should be east, but my paper says east.
No problem. Okay, looking at the map, this is what I really want to see. The 3 parcels that are there, if you go to the east of that, where you don't see any houses, that's where I live.
Yes,
So
sir.
am I to understand that that's 1485, which is the part that's not being seen? So, 200 trucks, people coming in the park. My question is this area going to be fenced off all the way around? Because there are people where these 3 addresses are, 1327, 1363, and 1401. 1401 is right, is my neighbor. That's the guy right there, I guess, with the trailer right there.
Yes.
Yes, that's him. And 1327 and 63 are the next properties over. So am I to understand that these people are moving out, that they're buying
Yes.
their land, and now this 10 acres that they're requesting is going to be for these 200 trucks, with people coming in and out all the time. And now, I didn't read anything about compressed gas or anything like that. I don't know anything about it, but I just need to find out. I would like to know the entrance. I guess that if those people are houses are gone and their trailers are removed, they'll have all that vacant land. But to have 200 trucks coming in and out, whatever time of night, already to the east of me, Jones Brothers has their way station and whatever they have down there, and there is constant noise, a lot of times over the night, where the trucks are coming to dump or whatever, and you hear it boom, 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 all night, and I think sometimes they do it on purpose, but maybe not, I don't know. But anyway, that's a lot to consider, and they're gonna be, that land is right next to my property. So is it gonna be fenced off to the
To
point
answer your
where?
question about fence, they are showing a fence
All the way around?
the property. They are showing their plan that's committed to.
Also, there's a natural gas line that's already there.
Yes, there is.
So
There
that's-
is, because I'm on natural gas.
That's what they stated in their plan.
Well, I just thought, I'm finding more about it than what I read in the letter, to have that kind of traffic. There's only 7 houses on that street, including these 3 right here. So to the east of that would be 2 other properties, then this one, mine, and 3 other ones, and then these 3 right here, mine, and then the one next door to me,
And then Jones Brothers has their storage yard or whatever.
across.
Just, yes.
Right
Are
across
these
the street.
residents, are they zoned I-1, or, I mean,
I know these three are, I don't think they are. I think
The
they're,
map says that these other residences are still,
they're still zone residential.
are residential.
That's right.
They're all one.
That's correct. This is in Mount Juliet's planning region, so, take that into consideration for what it's worth as well.
So somebody put a I-1 zone in
In
between
the middle,
our property.
yeah,
Yes.
Well, there's nothing we can do about it, but that's not very well.
no, but it's not. And to have, like you said, that many people coming in and out, I don't know what time, I'm single, I'm not married, I only have a dog. Not that that matters, but I'm just saying, 200 trucks, that's,
You may have
if-
heard us mention earlier tonight, the first case that was here, the gentleman expressed some concerns. And we told him, I did, that there are a limited number of things that we can consider. But, this property's already zoned I-1. Whether that's good for you, bad for you, but it's the situation we have to deal with. So it's an industrial property, it has a gas line up in front of it, beside it, and it's adjacent to the railroad track. And that's when someone thought that was a good idea to put between two residential tracks out. Anyway, but, there's a limited number of things. But they do show a fence around the perimeter, and we do appreciate your concerns.
Beyond that, what we can do is, what we can require is when they come in for their commercial site plan review to the planning commission, we do have transitional buffer requirements that we can try to make sure that they apply to, or that they apply to the site. Those would include things like having a 10-foot wide vegetative buffer, in addition to the fence. Well, we would be putting in a mix of evergreen deciduous species if they're not already there.
oh, there's plenty of trees over there.
Yeah, and if they want to maintain that set of trees, we'll allow that to be the established buffer. But if they have an area where they don't have adequate vegetation, they can reinforce it with additional vegetation.
I probably didn't explain this fully. This is a hearing for the use only. They would have to go to the planning commission to do a full site plan. Yes, for another step. So it's adjacent to the residential properties, as Mr. Bashir mentioned, it would have to be buffered and dealt with, I guess, differently than it could.
Yeah.
But another
I won't
industrial.
say in this application that it would be something that you might even perceive as adequate, but it's at least something.
But you're right, 250 trucks coming in now is a lot. It's no doubt about that.
I appreciate you.
That's right. Anyone else here wish to address 4009?
Mr. Chairman, since it's new, I would like to ask the applicant, is there the technology itself? I know like electric vehicles are considerably quieter. Are compressed gas vehicles considerably quieter, or are they as loud as a diesel?
No, it takes 10 compressed natural gas trucks running to equal the decibel level of one diesel, all at idle, but, so considerably quieter. And while, yes, the facility, will have some volume, it's not as if it's on shifts where it's, 7 a.m., there's 200 people queuing in the site. A site like this may have 2 or 3 or 4 local operators that run a trucking business, and they have an agreement with Clean Energy's client who purchases the infrastructure, the trucks, and local folks providing local jobs operate those routes and those trucks. So it's very much it isn't a one onslaught of in and out each day the way these operate. Correct.
I will testify, that's not my experience with the particular operator that I've been made aware, maybe looking at the primary contractor with this property. They tend to come in kind of swarm shifts. And I'm just basing it on what they do with their gas powered vehicles.
Well, that also depends on certain operators. They have 6 and 8 different types of facilities where each does a different function. And there's definitely certain
something that's gonna be open 24/7?
Correct, but again, someone may have a special freight they have to go and get, it takes 4 hours to get back, and they may want to start earlier or later, right? And will be accessible, but locked off with access, but 24/7 access to those that have access.
Well, as I mentioned earlier, there's a limited number of things that we can do. But is it your testimony the site will be fully fenced?
Yes.
Because I do think the surrounding residents appreciate some security. We don't want the ability of someone just to sort of wander over.
Understood, and we want that same security internally.
And I need to make one more comment, Joe. Listen to the young lady's testimony. When I look in here, it says proposed. I hope when you go to the next board, you have something, yes, we're going to do this. To be as good a neighbor as you can to the people that surround this industrial zone. So I would encourage you to kind of,
Absolutely.
instead of proposed, this is what we're going to do.
Mr. Blades, you had a question?
Sonia has asked the same question over
I've got a quick question.
Absolutely.
And it's probably not really relevant, but what's the time period on a truck? You fill it up, does it run 1 day, 2 days, 3 days? When does that particular truck need to come back in? I know it depends on like how many hours, how many miles, but not that has a lot of bearing, I guess maybe
As the real estate developer, I usually have someone with clean energy with me in tow, and they couldn't make
Right.
it today, so I don't know that technical
Okay.
question, but of course, it's all gonna depend on miles and how
Right.
fast you're going.
I didn't know if all the trucks, same trucks would come back daily or once a week, once every day, or
As far as,
if that's not available, it's
I
not
can give
available.
you the information, just
Just curious about that.
understood.
Does anyone else here wish to address 4099? Kimley Holm? Okay, if not, I'll close the public hearing and turn it to the board. In regard to 4099, I will make a motion that we approve the use for that they request a truck terminal, but deny the sewer waiver. And my motion has a stipulation that you do fence the entire perimeter of the site. So my motion is to approve the truck terminal, not approve the sewer waiver, and that this motion requires him to fence the entire perimeter of the site. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Now, discussion on the motion.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
When you say that you're denying the sewer waiver, are you denying the opportunity for them to use septic as an alternative? Because we have a commercial requirement for public sewer connection.
Which the Water and Wastewater Authority can fulfill.
Can provide.
Yes.
So you want them to explore that option as opposed to just using traditional septic?
They cannot use traditional septic. They're going to have to go to Water and Wastewater or the city of Nigeria or some venue. I don't think we can reasonably expect that number of folks
Not that they'll be.
not have to go through. And I don't think that we have ever, and I think it's a good thing that we've never allowed a portable situation to exist permanently on an industrial or commercial site.
Yes. I just wanted to clarify.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. Discussion by the board. There is no discussion. All in favor of the motion as stated, vote aye.
Aye.
Opposition, vote no. The ayes have it. Thank you all for coming. Okay, the next case 4100 Brian Thompson. I will declare an indirect conflict of interest in that Mr. Thompson is a relative of mine, and I will ask Vice Chairman Neal to conduct 4100. So, that's it, it's all yours.
Chairman, we have an alternate here, right?
We do, and Ms. Robinson is sitting in for Mr. Dial, so Mr. Manning will sit in for me.
Okay, so we'll have a full complement.
Yes, we still got
We still have
5-man board. All right, we're ready for case number 4100. Brian Thompson, on behalf of Linda Sue Thompson, is requesting approval for a grass landing strip. The property is located at 17531 Central Pike, parcel 14.01, Wilson County Tax Map 115. The property consists of 54.5 acres and is zoned A1 agriculture. Staff will get recommendations on this.
Before I start in on my written recommendations, I want to point to you on the map. I can't point to this one because it will not accept the laser pointer, so I'm going to point behind you, board members. As we understand it, the grass strip is going in this vicinity of the property, if I'm correct. Kind of between this, what I believe is creek, dry creek, and this property line. So it's going kind of north-south here, or southwest and northeast, across through there. And that being said, I'll start with my comments. Just wanted to give you a general vicinity. The applicant is requesting approval for a grass landing strip. The applicant has submitted a layout plan of the airstrip on the 54.5 acre parcel. The nearest neighbor to the proposed airstrip is to the west of the property, approximately 650 feet away. That would be this house. The airstrip is proposed to begin 100 feet away from the front property line, so roughly right in here is where the airstrip is going to start. There are no proposed buildings on the property at present. The applicant is hereby given notice that a plot plan will need to be submitted to the Building Codes and Zoning Division and a building permit obtained if a hangar is ever to be established in the future. So if they ever decide they're going to put a hangar on the property, they'll need to come in and get a building permit for it. If any future hangar is proposed for public use, this is another stipulation, then the plot plan will also be required to be submitted with application for additional consideration by the Board of Zoning Appeals under a use request for a public airport use, which is a use on appeal in the A1 district. As we understand that this grass strip is for private use only at present. If the hangar is proposed for personal use, then the plot plan submittal and building permit application to the Building Codes and Zoning Division will suffice so long as the proposed structure is otherwise compliant with Wilson County zoning. I've said a lot about hangars. They're not proposing a hangar, but I'm just putting it on the record that if they ever put one in, and this is just based on past experiences where somebody did a grass strip and then lo and behold, they had a hangar out there.
Right.
If it's for private use, the hangar's for private use, then they come in and get a building permit for it, like any other accessory structure can go on, as long as it meets the other zoning criteria. If it's to be for public airport use, they gotta go through the Board of Zoning Appeals. Staff would also recommend that if this approval is granted, that it be made clear that this airstrip is for personal use only, and there will be no air shows or commercial landings on the property except for emergencies. With the above being stated, staff can recommend approval.
Okay, we have staff recommendations. Who is here representing case number 4100? Give us your name and address, please.
Brian Thompson, 17601 Central Pike. Thank y'all for looking at this application. It is going to be a private, restricted airstrip. There will be no asphalt, no grading, or anything of that nature. Just mowed strip of grass for my personal use.
Mr. Thompson, did I accurately state where the strip is going and everything?
Yes, that's correct. That's correct.
Okay.
And I'm supposing you just you with one plane?
Yes, I just have one airplane, and it's hangared at Lebanon.
Okay.
It's a what?
It's hangared at the Lebanon Airport.
Oh, I got you.
Anybody else on the board? Yes, sir. Please.
The use of this strip that we approved, the airplane you're talking about, where would you store the airplane?
In Lebanon.
So this would just be, you wouldn't be storing the airplanes overnight on this, it'd just be takeoff landing?
Yeah, just
Okay.
Any other questions, board? Anybody in the public have any comment? We have a recommendation to approve this. Is the map I have here, this house here, obviously it's not a part of that, but do you, is that your
That's my
place?
house.
Okay, okay, but it's,
So that's your house?
That's correct.
yes.
Have you made any contact with the houses up here?
I've contacted and made personal appearances with all but maybe two that were not, no, there was just one in the back that were not home, but I did make a personal visit with those houses, tell them what I was doing, and told them they would give a letter, and had very good feedback.
So really, it shouldn't be very active. I mean,
I landed there twice in the last 12 months.
just recreational.
Yeah.
Fine.
100%.
We, I think, you know, we had one of these come up, I don't know, a couple of years ago, over on Pike, and it created quite a bit of controversy, but anyway, so, I guess, you know, we can't, I don't know if we really restrict how much you can use it or anything, it's your own personal use, you know, my advice would be, don't be landing and taking off 20 times a day. Practicing, I guess practicing might be a better word, and I know you gotta practice a little bit, but, you know, just do be aware of you know, the neighbors in the neighborhood. All right, anybody else have any comments? Floor be open for a motion.
Make a motion to approve.
Have a motion to approve, we have a second.
Second.
Have a motion to approve and a second. Everybody in favor, vote aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Emmanuel, second.
And, case is approved.
Thank you.
You bet. Welcome back.
Thank you.
It's cool.
One reason I think that those folks out on Long Pike or Old Long Pike had such a lot to say was, you know, that fella had like one of those radial engine things.
Well, he had a lot going on. He had a hangar outside of the building there, I think. But anyway, there was a lot more going on out there, I would agree.
He had one of those big radial engine jobs that he would come and go with, and I think everybody in that part of the world knew it when that happened. Okay. Case 4101, Jose Avella is requesting to use property for a wedding venue. The property is located at 3508 Hobson Pike, parcel 65, tax map 119. The property consists of a total of 6.84 acres and 3.58 acres is located in Wilson County. 3.26 acres is located in Davidson County. The property is zoned R1 residential. We get staff recommendations on 4101.
Mr. Chairman, the applicant is requesting to use the property for a wedding venue. The property consists of a total of 6.84 acres, 3.58 acres of which is located in Wilson County, and 3.26 acres of which is located in Davidson County. We don't have any jurisdiction over the 3.26 acres in Davidson County, although it is part of the property. The wedding venues are permissible use by right on properties over 15 acres, and that's kind of a misnomer. They're exempted under state agricultural law from local jurisdictional oversight as a part and parcel of agriculture if they're over 15 acres or otherwise qualifies in agricultural use. In this case, they don't have that acreage. Therefore, because the property in total is 6.84 acres, or more correctly, 3.58 acres in Wilson County, and wedding venues are not a specified use on appeal of the R1 zone district as listed, staff cannot recommend approval. If the board chooses to grant this request, staff will note that the variance is only put into effect on the portion of property located in Wilson County. I will stipulate that we've met with the applicants on site when we were on our field review. Many of the facilities that they wish to use are already in place. I do understand there may have been, and this is because we have received complaints over the past year about different events that have occurred on the property. I do think they've already used it a time or two.
For the facilities that are existing, were they permitted?
I do not know the answer to that. Karen, do you? I think they were existing buildings that new, if that's,
Okay. Who's here to represent case 4101, Avella? Morning, sir. Could you give us your name and address, please?
It's Cruz Avila, and it's 3508 Hobson Trail. It's my dad's property, and he's looking to get a permit for the wedding venue, and everything's been there. Facility, the storage, there was 2 system bathrooms there already, so it's pretty much all been there throughout ever since he moved in. I think he's been there for about 3 years now, and he's trying to convert that into a wedding venue. It's a big old storage, as you can see in the parcel right there.
if you'll turn around and look, this is an existing home on the property, and
Exactly.
it pretty much looks like any other home. This is a large, I'll say,
It's like a barn.
accessory structure that was open air. On our investigation, looked like they had maybe an area for dining or dancing. They also had a gravel area back here. It looked like maybe they had a place for a stage and or a DJ. Seems as though there may have been a structure that was on this side of that gravel drive also. My staff may have to help me here, but it had kind of a bar top and smaller space.
Can you show what part of the property's in Wilson County and Davidson on the map?
Well, I mean, keep in mind, our parcel lines are for reference only, they're not survey grade, but this is, I think, largely the Wilson County side, and then perhaps this is the Davidson County side.
Yes, correct.
So pretty much the event part or the building part is in Wilson County.
It appears so.
All
yes.
the parking is in Davidson.
Okay.
Yes, behind the property line is where they were looking at, they actually had a driveway established going down this side of the property back to a parking area back here.
But, Tom, you're saying this is not a allowed use in this zone?
No, sir.
Uh,
I mean,
So it's all one
This is a
residential.
hard one to enforce. If somebody had a wedding reception, a one-off wedding reception for a family member after or a family reunion, we're not looking to enforce anything. But if it's a routine event center that's being advertised for rent out or for use or for throwing fundraising parties and that type of thing, it comes into play. It's something that we need a list of use to be able to recommend approval.
Gotcha.
Do you understand what he just said there? That for personal use, it's quite all right, but when you start renting it out and advertising it, that turns it into a totally different
That's right.
thing.
Yeah, I understand.
Karen, have we seen any advertisements on this one?
Yeah, we have,
It's in the
in our packet, there's, I don't know what.
We've had several of these occur across the county, so I get them a little bit mixed up from time to time, but I do know that I've received at least one phone call from a concerned neighbor some 7 or 8 months ago about a call.
How many weddings have you had so far?
I actually got married there as well, and I would say it's been, I know it's been at least 10 weddings, and what I was telling Karen when I met with her is it's mostly church members from the church we go to that want to get married there. But as soon as we got that complaint letter in the mail, that's when my dad came to me. He was like, "Yeah, I think we should go and try to appeal these." Since more members are asking us from the community and from our church that they want it as a rental.
Well, your advertisement says live music venue.
See, and that's something I spoke to her about, that we weren't aware of that. When I showed that to my dad, and when I spoke to her, he was here with me, and he wasn't aware of that either. Someone, I guess, created that page and advertised it, but it wasn't,
Someone that rented your facility?
yes, I would suppose
So
so.
they rented your facility out and they made that advertisement?
I think so, yes. That's pretty much what I'm thinking. That's what they did, because we weren't aware of that.
Okay. The board have any more questions for the applicant?
Mr. Chairman, we, looking at this and reading about this, you have on here on a page where it's all showing the hours and everything that they're open. So we're doing major advertising here for a residential area.
Yeah, whoever created it, put the whole.
Yeah, they established the hours and
they've got
everything else.
hours Monday through Sunday.
Yeah.
How many people showed up for this advertising?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure for that right there. But from what I've heard, it was quite a few. It was.
Must have been. Any other comments or questions from the board for the applicant? Yes, sir.
We've got a couple of written complaints here from different people in the area. And one of them is that alcohol and food was being served, and this is located across the street from the church.
Yes.
My understanding is it's not supposed to be allowed. Now, I know that maybe you didn't have control over what the people do to rent the place out, but there's a lot of rules and so forth that could be put in place, just like we've got a complaint of loud music up until midnight of a resident.
And it's just hard for me to say and answer all the questions. I don't live there. I came, today to hear the appeal, but I don't live there. So it's, my dad's out of town. He had an emergency contact, family member. So he's out of town. He's not here, and that's why I came to stand. But, just want to put it out there that I don't know exactly most of the questions if it was into detail.
Do you have any kind of a business plan for this property?
He did. And he kind of gave it out in the plan where he was stating where the parking was going to be at the maximum capacity of people and the hours he was going to try to open it and the days.
Yeah, you got the time frame, but what I'm looking at, 85 people max, only religious and family events, and somebody wrote in weddings, birthday parties. And the time frame you've got here is basically from 12 p.m. to midnight.
Yes, sir. Well, from Tuesday.
Other comments from the board? Questions? Okay. Does anyone else here wish to address 4101? Okay. Then I'll close the public hearing. Thank you for speaking with us. All right. And turning to the board for discussion or a motion.
I'll make a motion to deny request based on lack of information.
Second.
Plans, parameters,
Staff
what events
recommendations. And staff recommendation.
to deny.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So your motion is to deny based on staff recommendations and lack of other information.
Second.
Second. Now, discussion for the motion. Any discussion? This is not an allowed use in this zone. Okay, if there's no discussion, all in favor of the motion as stated, vote aye. Aye. Opposition, vote no. The ayes have it. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay. Our next case is case 4102, Brian Spears, requesting approval for an automotive accessory business located in an accessory structure. Applicant is also needing a variance of 6 feet from the setback requirement of 8 feet between structures. The accessory structures are 2 feet apart. The property is located at 6538 Simmons Bluff Road, Lot 2, Mark Vastola property, parcel 12.04 on Wilson County Tax Map 155. The property consists of 5.23 acres and is zoned A1 agricultural. Get staff recommendations on 4102.
The aerial actually predates the construction on the property. At this point, there's a house somewhere in this vicinity, and the facility that we're talking about is a series of 2 accessory buildings that have been put generally back in this area of the property. The applicant has also established a driveway back up into a clearing that's been made here in the back of the property in the woods, where he stated intent possibly to move operations back there. So the applicant is requesting approval for an automotive accessory business located in an accessory structure. The applicant is also needing a variance of 6 feet from the setback requirement of 8 feet between structures. And that's because the 2 accessory structures that have been built are approximately 6 to 7 feet separated, and they're supposed to be 8 foot separated unless they're connected. So,
Yeah,
it's 2 foot separated, but they,
I don't mean to interrupt, but how are they connected? Because it looks like, I mean, how could they be connected? Because it looks like to me they're touching one another.
right.
That might just be the picture.
because they're 2 feet apart.
Did you finish your recommendation?
I did, I
I did not.
I'm bad.
The portion of the business at the home regarding the remote tuning of vehicles as described to us by the applicant on site during our field review, he remote tunes built vehicles. This is interesting to me. He gets on a computer and can tune someone's car by hooking, I guess, into their computer, by computer. We can recommend approval of that, we feel, as a home occupation. However, the storage and shipment of business-related parts in and from the accessory structure exceeds the activities typically allowed under home occupations by staff interpretation. Therefore, staff cannot recommend approval of what he's got going on in the accessory structure with regard to keeping of inventory for the business. But the board may consider this request if they see it as an appropriate part of the existing home occupation business. Regarding the setback variance, staff cannot recommend approval and encourages that the buildings be attached, at least at the roof line, to resolve the violation. That would be the easiest way to resolve that violation at present. They can put a roof line connection between them, and we would consider them a unified building at that point. Regarding the setback variance, staff cannot recommend approval and encourages that the building be attached at the roof line to resolve the violation. Staff would also like to point out that this case was brought to our attention as a result of a complaint due to multiple cars being on the property. I believe specifically they were Mazdas. It was confirmed on site review that all the cars on the property belong to the owner, with one belonging to an acquaintance who was there when we performed our field review, and are therefore not considered a zoning violation.
Okay, who's here to represent 4102? You, Mr. Spears?
Yes, sir.
What would you like to tell the board?
Yeah, and I put together a bit of a long-winded explanation of what we do, but the portion of our excuse me, the portion of our business that operates in Tennessee is exclusively online. We have a fabrication segment.
Wait a minute, now you said the portion of our business that operates online. Say that again.
That operates in Tennessee.
That operates in, so this facility, you're not receiving parts, shipping parts, or anything?
Absolutely right. So
you're not?
I'm just saying we don't have foot traffic is what I'm trying to make clear. There's no brick and mortar facility that customers can visit. There's no customers do not show up to our location is what I'm trying to make clear. So the sale of those parts is online.
Okay, so you bring parts in and warehouse them.
Right. There's a further explanation of that. We probably ship several hundred packages a day, 12 of which or less leave my facility in Lebanon.
Okay, go ahead.
The only parts that we ship out of my home would be stuff that we can't get through fulfillment, so it works through distribution. The other portion of the business is fabrication, and that's handled at a location in Michigan. We continue to do that. We just went our separate ways when we relocated to Tennessee, and now we handle this as part of a home operation. So yeah, there's no foot traffic. There's no customers showing up. We don't
You
work
have employees at this location?
We do. We have one, and he's a contract employee, but he answers phones and answers emails.
Okay. Questions from the board?
Maybe one for Tom, staff. With a home occupation, are they allowed one employee outside that doesn't live on site?
Typically, that is
Yes.
That is okay.
policy.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning. Did you permit these buildings that you have on site?
I did not, and
No permits?
Had I done that, we probably would have been made aware of the variance. I worked with a local company to produce the buildings, and
So you didn't permit either one of them?
No, I did not. We originally pulled the first step of the permit, and then the builder sort of stopped us there and said, you know, this is on your personal property, and we're not within city limits. You don't need to do that. and it just was misleading information. I think a lot of it was sort of a yes man operation to get us to close the deal, and that's what we did. And I think this would have been made clear pretty quickly that we couldn't have.
We are seeking outreach to this particular builder, because this is not the first time I've heard of this particular builder
They have already been notified.
spreading misinformation.
And they were otherwise great guys to work with, but
So how many trucks a day do you have that deliver to your facility?
UPS, that's it, once a day.
UPS once a day?
Yeah. And that unfortunately is strongly outweighed by the Amazon truck from my wife.
And how many trucks do you have that ship out a day?
The same driver does the
So you got
pickup.
one UPS truck.
One
coming in.
UPS truck a day, yeah. Yeah. Like I said, so the portions of our products that we sell that leave our building are just otherwise categorized that we can't get through distribution. So it would be like gasket sets. For instance, if somebody was building an engine, they need 5 different gaskets. We can't get that through distribution otherwise. So we package that, put it in a box, and it's picked up once a day by
And
UPS.
what do you do at this location in your business that generates noise that I might hear next door or down the road or something?
Nothing more than my wife playing with my son in the
I'm not
driveway.
worried about your wife, worried about your business.
Nothing. No, we walk around and talk on the phone, but it's inside. We don't make noise otherwise.
We had pictures from the initial zoning violation that showed several, I believe they were Mazda vehicles. You correct me if that's incorrect.
Right. 2 of them were Mazdas. I own both of those. We've since relocated one of them to the rear of the property, just out of sight. The rest of them were all mine or Jason's, and I've since sold one of those. We know we don't want it to look like a parking lot, but it was depicted that it was an automotive repair business, and we're most certainly not that. I mean, if I had a bigger house, I'd be in my house doing this.
So, just to clarify, these pictures here with all the, what I would call almost like a garage type door, windows, whatever, nobody's bringing vehicles in, you're not servicing
No.
anything, no outside vehicles other than your personal vehicles.
Right. The idea for the buildings, and it also should be made clear that probably 40% of those buildings or less is used for this business. The one has a movie theater and a gym housed in it. The other side is, we've got 5 shelves of gaskets and miscellaneous parts that we ship. The other portion is, I hope to be a place to put our cars, because this house has a single car garage, which is filled with anything but a car.
I'm curious, how do you even build a building 2 foot away from another?
No idea. So we wanted them connected.
I don't think they're 2 feet away, they look
They look very close. So I didn't want them 2 feet apart. I think Nate described, and Nate is from Black's Metals. I think the way that he described it is they didn't have the engineering when they order the parts for the buildings, because they're all prefabbed by manufacturer before they show up. I think the description was that we can't order them that way, so what we could do afterwards is apply flashing between the 2 buildings and make it one, which it appears we're probably going to have to do to be compliant anyways. But that was the solution during the process of ordering the building.
I got a question.
Yes, sir.
We've got a complaint here written that you've cleared some land, and they're saying it looks like you're gonna build a 3rd building.
So we originally wanted to build these buildings back, all the way in the back of the property, out of sight. And we realized pretty quickly it was going to be expensive to do that, get utilities back there and so on. So that's something that we're going to have to discuss down the road as far as whether or not we're able to do that. But it appears so far as the land itself will be a limiting factor. So now, that's when we made the transition to.
You had the ability to get permits for on residential zone parcel such as this for accessory structures that are specifically for personal use.
Right.
So, I mean, if you wanted to take where you cleared out the woods and kind of roughly in this vicinity,
Yeah.
correct? And put another building back there, you can certainly do that with a building permit.
Right.
A stormwater permit.
Absolutely. We know that now.
But you don't have, there's there's no listed permitted uses in this district that would permit you to run a commercial business
Right.
Outside of home occupation.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Does the board have other questions for the applicant? If not, do we have anyone else here who wishes to address this case, or case number 4102, Brian Spears? Anyone else here? Come forward, please. Have a seat, please.
Morning.
Morning.
My name is Phil Lane. My wife and I own the property adjacent to the east. So our address is 6575.
That's you?
That's us. We're 6575 Simmons Bluff Road. The way the houses sit, our house is close to the driveway, approximately 20 feet. Let me back up a minute. We bought the property in an area that was zoned, we understood as residential. As part of the purchase agreement and also the closing documents, there is a restrictive covenant list where number 1 is all lots will be used for residential purposes. So this is recorded in part of the county deed. So the builder executed this. So that covers all 7 lots along the road.
Just so you're aware, that's a private restriction that we will address.
Okay. All right. With the extended driveway that was mentioned runs on the property line separating our two businesses, or our 2 lots. That goes to the accessory building. Yes, he has an employee that drives to and parks at the accessory building, works there every day. There is truck traffic.
More than
pickup. I've only seen the UPS,
okay, but
it's a morning and evening backing up from the road all the way to the accessory buildings. The applicant has stated in the past that he did intend to have a dynamometer on site. I don't know if that's still the plan or not. My understanding, it's an automotive treadmill for testing. He's also mentioned that he has a equipment purchased to make metal shooting targets to manufacture and sell. So our concern is just increased businesses operating out of the accessory buildings would lead to increased noise, traffic, employees. We just feel that our concern is really the detrimental value it would have on our property. So I'm certain that the county has many industrial and light commercial areas. We would respectfully request that the variance be denied, and hopefully the applicant could find a suitable location for that business.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Let me ask you, is this your house here, according to what we got? This your house? This is his place where the building is?
Yes.
That's it, okay.
So the driveway is extended and it was asphalted.
Okay, I just want to know, make sure where you live.
Yeah, we installed these trees to help generate some kind of buffer, which will prevent.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else here wish to address 4102?
Morning. How are you guys today?
Good.
My name is Danielle DeGear, and I am Brian and Amber's neighbor to the west side, so directly the opposite side, 6428 Simmons Bluff Road. I am speaking on behalf of myself and my husband, who would be here, but he's at a football tournament today, so I want to advocate for them. I work remotely from home at least 2 to 3 days a week. I run a multi-million-dollar health firm in Nashville. I utilize my back porch to work outside. I hold Zoom meetings on the back porch during the week when the weather is nice. I have never once had anything that was disruptive to my day, my work day whatsoever coming from his accessory building. I probably have the UPS truck at my house more on a daily basis delivering packages that either myself or my husband has built or has had order to our house. You know, I have 2 kids that are probably noisier and permit more noise in our neighborhood than his business is doing currently. They're a good family. They have a little boy. They utilize their garage for working out. They love their cars. You know, they have a side-by-side Can-Am that they ride. There is nothing that they're doing that by any way is jeopardizing our homes, you know, the quietness of our street or anything else. I would say that every other neighbor on the street would advocate for them as well as they could have been here today. We hosted birthday parties together with other neighbors with bounce houses. You know, I have never heard another neighbor have a complaint in regards to it. It's very unfortunate that when the builder built the homes, they built their driveways so close. That's not Brian and Amber's fault. It's not their fault either. But Brian shouldn't be penalized in regards to building an accessory garage. My husband and I intend to do the same thing. We'll permit it, but we need more space. I mean, we have a 2-car garage, you know. When you have cars and you have hobbies, you need somewhere to house them. And I just want to say that from where I stand, being their neighbor, over the course of the last year, there is not one concern that I have in regards to what he is currently doing.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah.
Anyone else wish to address 4102 Spears? If not, then I'll close the public hearing and we'll turn to the board for discussion or a motion. You know, it seems to me that the homebound occupation section of the ordinance covers a lot of this.
Not going to interrupt, but it covers everything other than the fact that they're not actually in the home, or not everything, but it covers a lot. And I think we've dealt with this in the past a few times too.
We have.
Right or wrong.
And I'm thinking through this, it's sort of on the edge of yes, similar to the others, but no, it's probably bigger. I mean, we granted a gentleman a variance for a home business. He actually had it in an outbuilding, but the outbuilding was small, and he was a single shot operator. He was a book buyer.
I think we've let people have offices in accessory.
I think we've done that.
The definition of home occupation states that it's an incidental occupation customarily carried on in the residence, employing no more than one person not residing on the premise and utilizing no more than 25% of the usable floor area of all buildings. Doesn't say in other words, it says of all buildings. Provided 1, no article or service be sold or offered for sale on the premise other than that produced by such occupation. And 2, such occupation shall not require the alteration of buildings, new construction or equipment and machinery not customarily used in residential areas.
See, to me, since it says 25% of all buildings, that sort of, gives them an option to use.
I'm doing the math. He's got 2 buildings. You put them together, I think they're 2,800 square feet. Am I somewhere? So I don't know how big his house is, but out of that 2,800 square feet, he said he's using less than half of that. So pretty soon, I don't know how many. I guess we could ask him how many square feet of that he's actually using. I think pretty soon we're going to be down to where we're at about 25% of total floor space.
700 feet in that calculation would be 25%.
Well, but if you add the house to it, it said all buildings. So if you were to add the house, maybe it's 2,000, 3,000 square feet. If you add that.
But that's dedicated to the home business, correct?
The 25, no more than 25% can be dedicated to the home occupation.
But where do we?
Oh, yeah, you said about adding the house.
Right. I'm going to say, where do we get that 25%?
It would be
the house and the accessory buildings?
Yes.
Okay, so I think he's.
I don't see what he needs. That's just my point. I don't see what
the only question I had at all about the home occupation aspect of this, he also, keep in mind, he also had he built without a permit, and he's come back in trying to get that cleaned up, and he's got this setback issue between the buildings that we got to deal with. But on the home occupation side, for the business side, given that the initial pictures on the zoning complaint that we received and then when I investigated, had several cars there, it did appear to be a car repair thing. He testified that's not the case.
Well, if he has titles to the cars,
right,
then
there's nothing we
can do about that.
As long as they're serviceable and currently tagged.
I'm not going to be enthusiastic about letting a building be 2 foot from another building. That's going to have to be dealt with structurally.
Right.
The the question I had was, if you look at the pictures we took on field review, he's got those racks that have inventory on property
But they're inside.
that they're inside, but my question is, would they be, traditionally seen in a residential application? I don't know the answer to that.
Well, if you
know,
tell,
it's
if you
one
tell
thing for somebody
somebody,
to get UPS to come to your house to ship you a new yoga mat. It's another thing to get you to ship, 500 brake parts or exhaust pipes.
if you tell someone that they have a home business utilizing up to 25% of the floor area, then I think it's a reasonable thing to think they may have some shelves or racks or whatever to put them.
Okay.
I'm personally hesitant in offering variances where I think the ordinance covers the situation pretty well. And if it were to get out of hand, then we can fall back on the ordinance without having to worry about a motion that may or may not serve the purpose. Sometimes I think, we found out, with hindsight, we shot ourselves in the foot by doing too much.
Well, and part of the reason I brought it forward was so that you guys could discuss this with us, so we know how to proceed enforcement wise.
Okay. Other discussion by the board? I'm gonna move to deny 4102. I don't think there's any variance required here. Do I have a second?
See, just ignore the home occupation part, you discussed that, you have the variance that you need to do is, that you can deny, but don't mention the home occupation, just deny the variance for setback.
Chris, I've lost you. I said deny the request, that's both of them.
Right, I would just omit the part of the home occupation, that it's not on the request.
I don't know, if we are, okay, well, I'll just say, if we are under the impression that he meets the requirement of the home occupation, without us doing anything, then I feel like if you deny the whole case, you're almost denying I may be wrong.
State the motion that it meets the intent of the home occupation, and you're denying the setback variance between structures.
Say again?
Motion that the request meets the intent of the home occupation as outlined in the zoning.
See, I don't think we need to get into the technicalities of things. And specify things. I have heard nothing here that tells me that he's doing anything that has a home occupation. And he needs to live in that requirement.
So
he gets a.
So could you take no action, could you vote to make a motion to take no action on the home occupation discussion portion of the request? Or
If
take
we
no
vote-
action on the commercial?
If we vote to deny the request, we're not diminishing what's in the ordinance as it relates to home occupation by any means. Okay? So that's out there. Okay. And the other part of the request is for a variance, which I'm saying we're not going to approve it because it was unpermitted and it can be dealt with another way.
Okay. All right.
To me, that's the cleanest way to do it.
All right.
Yeah. Or a way to do it.
It's a way to do it. If he's not in violation, here's my simple man's thinking. If he's not in violation of the home occupation, then he doesn't need a variance.
Exactly.
If he is, then he needs a variance.
I think if he needs to live within the definitions of that.
And he has a right to do that,
He does.
but not to go
I
further.
think sometimes this board has to step up and define what is and what is not a home occupation. I think we have set a precedent of saying that's a home occupation, that's not a home occupation.
And you do have the ability of interpretation of either my decisions as a zoning.
So we have the ability to
administrator or the
interpret what is and what is not a home
Or the zoning.
occupation.
You do have
Therefore,
that.
I feel like we should rule on a home occupation.
Karen?
It's determining yes, up or down. But that's just me.
How do we do that?
Well, we have the information that's been gathered and we say say, yes, we approve the home occupation
As
based on testimony given before this board.
Okay, I put a motion out there. Did I get a second?
No.
I did? Okay. I'll withdraw the motion. We'll chat some.
I'm not
yes.
trying to be difficult.
Karen?
I've just got a question, because at the beginning of the home occupation, under specific terms, it says an incidental occupation customarily, which I get, carried on in the residence. And then it gives about the no more than 25% and no more than one person residing on the residence. But it also says such occupation shall not require the alteration of buildings, new construction, or equipment and machinery not customarily used in residential areas. This was new construction. I'm just throwing this out here for discussion.
Can I come with that?
The
Public hearing's closed. If we have a question, we'll allow it.
Yes, sir, thank you.
The applicant did get a stormwater permit, but no building permit. And I just need some clarity on.
My fear is, and I hear what you're saying, and it sounds like the ordinance is, as it is sometimes, in some conflict with itself. But, a little bit. But if we say that automotive accessory sales out of the accessory buildings is a home occupation, maybe not this gentleman, but maybe whoever has the property next, we find out there's a large amount of business going on out there that somebody's going to say we approve here. And that was the reason
Right, I understand that.
Other thoughts?
Part bothers me, I mean, people go into these residential areas. If they want a home in a commercial district, they could buy a home in a commercial district. So I think we have reason to consider where this place is at, how it operates, what's around it. I mean, pretty soon, okay, you call it residential, but then it's really not being conducted as residential. More or less. You get my point? I mean, I think we have obligation to try to go by the ordinances and keep them from getting out of control. You can open up, what control do we have after you say, and I'm not talking particularly this one, any of them, what kind of control enforcement is used later on down the road when the violations start coming around? Do we do that? Can we stop it? Those type of things concern me. What control is it?
Well, and that was my thought, was that if we deny it, then the ordinance stands and speaks for itself. And if enforcement needs to go out there and go and say something to them, or if things would get out of hand, we haven't taken any action that would cloud that.
That's probably what it is, what I'm.
That's cool. And
So, cool. So, my question, Tom, what do you do if we flat out deny this?
Well, part of the
Do you
reason
go
that
closing down?
part of the
or
reason
you
I
do-
put in my staff comments was because I saw y'all's input. From my perspective, I see the computer auto tuning by description as something that probably falls under home occupation. No question.
Everybody's got a computer.
I had some questions when I looked in the garage door, and there was
Parts.
those parts and rags that they were shipping in and out. I didn't know really what to make of that. We had one example of a guy that got a horse on his road one time on, I think it was Prairie Road, for a brake assembly. He eventually went and got his property rezoned, commercial. Initially, he was rezoned because
It was, but when it got to a point, he had to get it rezoned because of
scale.
scale. Yeah.
So my question to you, I suppose, would be, are you in fact saying that you interpret that at the level he's at right now, that probably falls under home occupation? Because that was where I was unclear. The computer auto tuning, I got it. That's home occupation. Whether or not he can store inventory and sell it back wasn't sure about that.
I understand about the computer. UPS doesn't pick up the signal and take it somewhere. That's fine, that's home occupation. It's just on the internet tuning over the Wi-Fi, whatever you want to call it. But UPS trucks coming and going, or whatever part being shipped, to me, it's going over the line
So what,
to the home occupation.
Basically, what I would be looking at is, with the 5 racks he's got right now, as testified to, we constitute it as a home occupation, if that's what you wish, or not.
what about some home occupations that I think a daycare is allowed possibly, cutting people's hair? You got a whole lot more foot traffic with that, people coming and going every hour. They got one truck coming a day.
Yes, sir.
I mean, would that not be
Yes, sir.
something that's allowed
It's a good
every
point.
day?
It's a good point.
I can cut, I can't, if I
Well, I
want to
guess-
cut hair, if I want to have a daycare in my house,
But aren't those most of the time permitted uses on the field?
I'm asking, I thought they fell under the home occupation.
No, those are usually uses of, barbers are usually uses on field. And
I just know that some of those exist in homes, in houses, I don't know if they're permitted or not.
The question had,
Photography businesses and stuff.
Sir?
Photography businesses are big inside the home as well.
Okay.
the question, I guess, with regard to the definition of home occupation I've got is, and the way I'm interpreting it, is no article or service be sold or offered for sale on the premise other than that produced by such occupation, and such occupation shall not require the alteration of buildings, new construction, or equipment and machinery not customarily used in residential areas. That's open-ended, but
Well, and that's why I say that if we were to go out there in a year and there is a dynamo or there is other things going on that are not customarily seen in that application, then we're not clouded by something we've done here. Enforcement can proceed.
understood.
But I feel like we've got testimony that he's not having outside vehicles. He's not, I'm assuming a dyno, you would have to bring a vehicle on site for customers to use that. We've got him under oath that that's not gonna happen. Or, I would feel like that if he violated what we've got testimony given, then enforcement can come in and say, hey, that's not what you were approved for.
And, I guess, I hate to almost bring this up, but gun sales, we at this point interpret as, they used to come here as uses on field. We now just consider them, per your direction, as home occupations. I'm sure they have.
Within the criteria.
Within the criteria. I'm sure they have widgets and trigger mechanisms and things like that shipped by UPS to the property. That they then, somebody delivers them a gun and they fix it if they're a gunsmith.
Well, a UPS truck or Amazon or a FedEx once or twice a day is not.
It's the norm for residential house. That's the norm. That's not heavy foot traffic.
Yeah, it is. But going, back to what Perry mentioned, he asked that we define whether this is a home occupation or not. And to me, this is getting really, really close, if not over the line, to not being. It's certainly not, it doesn't easily fit into that category. And if we say this situation is a home occupation, then I fear that if somebody wanted to, maybe, not this gentleman, we know these approvals and these variances we give go with land. So it may not be this year, next year, maybe 10 years. But, we may go out there, there's a lot more going on under the home occupation classification. In regard to 4102 Spears, do I hear a motion?
I don't know how well it'll go over. I'm gonna make a motion that we recognize this applicant as, in the testimony given, as a home occupation. And then I will recommend that we cannot approve the variance in the two buildings.
So the motion is to recognize this as a home occupation
based on testimony given
and deny the setback.
Yes, please, yes.
All right, we have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
A motion and a second. Discussion.
Mr. Chairman, I'm not even, my words don't count much, but what I want to maybe ask Perry if he's going to add is that your motion is based on this particular set of facts.
Yeah, based on testimony given, that would be the applicant, based on testimony given by the applicant.
Because, and you
Yes.
do, or y'all hear me say it all the time, that's
Yes.
precedent. But on these home occupations, no two are ever the
Right,
same.
okay.
So if you limit it to just what you said.
I feel like the testimony that he gave was very clear about what was and was not going on, and how much of that building was used, and how much of it's used for gym and personal stuff.
And then you're denying anything in excess of that.
Yes, yes. I'm approving the home occupation based on testimony given by applicant.
How much of the building in your motion can he use for warehouse or in relation to his business?
I guess we could break it down to 25% of the floor space based on the house and building, all floor space,
But you add
25%.
the house to it. Sir, how large is the house?
We'd like to determine the total square footage.
I just thought maybe you knew how big a house you had.
Not big enough.
Okay. And, but here we got, it says the house is 2,000 square feet. And there were 2,800 square feet in the accessory building. That's 4,800.
25% of that floor space. It's
The house is 29.
Oh, it's larger. 2920. So based on that interpretation,
Yeah, not counting the attached garage and square footage.
see, that's what we get in. Now we're up to 1,430 square feet of warehouse, home occupation. That's a lot of warehouse for home occupation. Right. And so, and we're getting into this size business with 1,430 square feet.
I'd rather not in my motion have it. I want to just, based on the testimony that he has given, is like I said, and that may be too vague. Maybe.
Well, I'm thinking back, when he goes to court, Mike goes to court from time to time, he probably, when he gets shot up over. If it's not in the motion, it's hard to,
I understand that.
it's hard to enforce if it wasn't included in the motion.
I got a question. If you approve him for home occupation only, I would assume that that's according to the standard rules.
Right, I didn't really grant any variances on, I just said that I viewed this use as a home, as a board member, I made a motion that Thompson, part of our job is interpretation. I'm interpreting this as a home occupation based on the testimony given by the applicant. Mike, is that fair enough? I mean,
That's, but as good as you can do, hello, sir.
I don't want to just, I don't know where else.
Well, you're limiting your motion to this case, so I don't think
Right.
this particular set of facts can be used by anybody unless they are out of.
And then is it good enough to keep this thing from blowing into something 2 years from now that it does? I mean, if it gets way out of hand, can you go in there and say, well, this is what was ruled on, and you're not doing it? You've got 20 cars coming in and out of here. You've got 5 mechanics working here. You've got all, I mean, we've eliminated all that to some degree, have we not?
If that happens, you'll get a copy of the transcript and Bruce and we'll know exactly what's testified to.
How big do these things have to get before we're remiss, not requiring stormwater? We got codes that these buildings weren't inspected, they weren't permitted, they didn't pay impact fees, they didn't pay any,
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that, and Kerry mentioned something that, we talk about people working at home with their computers. 20 years ago, we didn't have that. And this zoning ordinance stuff was designed for people that were going to cosmetology or barbers or a lawnmowing service or something like that. And now it's changed with people using, they do a lot of work by just hitting the computer.
Computer and UPS.
and that's fine.
We may have to take a look at it.
That's fine. What I'm worried about is things that aren't being done on the computer. You build these buildings, you don't have, now he got a stormwater permit. I don't know where they got it on one of both, but you got, there's one in our file. Karen?
Yes.
Was this stormwater permit for both buildings, or do you know?
It says garage, 1,400 square feet, and the stormwater was done on 6/28/22.
So probably not one.
But it says.
It just says garage, 1,400 square feet.
And I just spoke with Karen also, and he did not get any kind of permits or anything, or inspection or any permit or anything.
We do inspections on accessories.
No inspection or any permit or anything.
Yeah.
That's just what it is.
Yes.
Same electrical.
Yes, the electrical was inspected by the state.
Well, I'm just,
If permits are required, since the buildings are already completed, which this is a.
well, then, why would the permits not be required if the buildings are completed? If you didn't get them, you didn't get them.
Well, right, I just didn't know what you would require as the board.
I would require categorically, if you find someone who was building a building and it wasn't permitted, that they be asked to participate like everybody else. I don't think just putting the last nail in the structure should get you
Sneak it in.
a free ride or pass a permit process. I don't agree with that at all. So I think it should go even without board action. That somebody
Like a
pays this to pay proper permits, impact fee, and stormwater. Okay. Now, we have a motion and we have a second.
Who's that?
I do.
And that being said, somebody, can I read back the motion, please?
Motion by Neal to recognize the use as a home occupation based on testimony given and given this particular set of facts, and to deny the setback variance or separation variance between the two accessory buildings. And based on what you just said, I might suggest you may want to add to that they seek and receive necessary stormwater and building permits.
I'll amend it to add that they get building permit and stormwater if necessary permit.
Okay, have an amendment to the motion, Mr. Second, are you okay with that?
Yes.
Have a motion, duly seconded, been read to us now, it's been amended, and second has accepted. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, if not, all in favor vote aye. All opposed vote no. I vote no.
Wait a minute.
No. No. Motion fails. 2, 4, and 2, 4, and 3 in opposition. So motion fails. Okay. Now, so that motion has failed. Now we're back to the original case. In regard to 4102, Brian Spears, do I hear a motion? Okay, I will make a motion to deny the request in case 4102. Do I have a second? Have a motion and second. Discussion by the board. If not, all in favor of the motion vote aye. Aye. Hold on. How many ayes? Hold up your hands. How many ayes? 1, 2, 3. 3 ayes. Opposed, vote no.
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 2 no, so the motion carries. So, 3 to 2, motion carries. So your home occupation would be up to the discretion of the staff.
Right.
All right, good deal. Thank y'all for coming in.
Oh, yeah. They're out on. No, they're out on Burford Road. They relocated some of them.
Wait just a minute. Anything else need to come before the board, Tom? Teresa's fingers.
No, we do not have any more.
Thank you. We are adjourned.